So we have a really lovely night planned, and Gabe Witcher and Mary Faber are going to start us off, and they are both amazing musicians. I recently got to see Gabe in his band Punch Brothers perform, and it was just the most electric evening. And Mary is an old friend and former student of many years ago who's been on Broadway, and this is the first time you're singing together in public. They're married. First time, did I mention that? They're married. They have a little baby, and it's maybe one of the first times that they're, which is super cool, I think. So, so welcome, welcome, welcome.
This first song is called Sister Rosetta Goes Before Us.
Mm.
Orange and
Oh, yay, they just left some beauty in their wake, yeah. Thank you guys, that was so beautiful. So this is the first of 6 evenings from now till April of 2016 that we're gonna be doing, I almost wanna say they're called backyard illuminations, but sort of salons with this wonderful music and a few other guests, and there are people here that will be performing later, like Avi in the corner is going to be performing in August, and so it's a beautiful collaborative thing. But before I'm going to actually speak tonight, I want to introduce my husband, Andrew, who recently we've been sharing our poetry together, and it's been a real joy, and I hope that we get to continue to do that. And tonight, he is going to share a poem hot off the presses, really up until about 10 minutes ago, in the best way, that I think really feeds in beautifully to the theme for the evening. So, Andrew, yay.
Thank you. Yeah, I literally was writing this up until like 5 minutes ago. It may just crash and burn. But there we are. We look in the mirror, rearrange features, hold our chin at the proper angle, hide the blemish, find our maximum impact, cheekbones highlit, teeth blinding, no sweat, camera ready, confident smile. But the front of you is a lie. Armored steel, too practiced, too thought out. It's the front of you that stops, pushes the world away, says, no thank you, I'm trying to cut down, don't go in for, not my cup of, don't smoke, have food allergies, am gluten-free, don't touch, indoor voice, walk, don't run, in a calm and orderly, while the back of you says, go. These wild parts, held in, tucked up, and forgotten, are wild. The biceps femoris and the erector spinae, the gluteus maximus and the scapular retractors, the posterior deltoid and the secret language of toes, the extensor digitorum and the fibularis brevis, each one searching for stillness, those parts of us that extend and stretch, take the heart unawares as the armor of your front side strains to rein you in, as you feel the light on your face, the size in your chest as you open your arms. Surely 2 dimensions aren't enough for all that heartbreak and ecstasy. The confining world with its zoomed in postage stamp personal ad front side need to define you. A bank manager, contractor, father, friend, lawyer, employee of the month. Surely the world through that lens is too small for you. Those floor walls and those tiny screens and so little that stands tall or makes us lift our heads expectant. Surely you miss the peripheral, unhinged, uncontrolled, unmediated backside with all your bloodline behind you like an army and all your hidden history spurring and urging and standing you up like a bowsprit, and the spine with its delicate curving motions, the L vertebrae at the root like a redwood, curving up, then back, then in again, tapering to delicate ivory, and all your senses running through you like antennae, lover's flesh and bay leaves and fine baby hair and music and soft earth and blades of grass, and the curious, unmistakable scent of father and mother, wife, husband, child, flying upward on currents of nerves. Don't forget that. Don't forget them. That glorious, urgent back of you, the back that says yes. Ladies and gentlemen, Heidi Roosevelt.
Yay. So I had sort of just mentioned to Andrew that I was sort of the theme of tonight, and the front of the body and the back of the body, and thinking about what we leave in our wake. And I guess tonight, my wish for you is that by the end of this evening, you walk out of the door and you're aware, more aware of what we're usually unconscious of, you know, just this whole vibrating, open path behind us, and, you know, bringing more consciousness to what we leave behind us. So, I mean, the whole talk is sort of in this exploring that, the different walks that we take and how conscious we are of what's behind us. So, 3 walks. I'm going to tell you about 3 walks. The first walk, I was 20 years ago. I met Andrew at Interlaken Arts Camp. He came to direct choreograph the broadsword fights for Henry V, which I was directing. And he came at the very end of the summer. And really, there was about 10 days left before, you know, he came in to choreograph the fights, and a week later, there was going to be the dress rehearsal. And this was, I think, like the night of the dress rehearsal, maybe the final dress rehearsal. And we fell in love hard and fast. It was like, you know, overnight kind of thing. And so like a couple hours before the dress rehearsal, we were madly making out. And, and I was like, I have to go to the dress rehearsal. And I remember coming out of the cabin, and like, I had about a half a mile to walk. And I remember just sort of walking and at the same time looking at myself from above and being just like, this walk is leaving so much love in my path, you know? I mean, it was like partially feeling just giddy and heady and delicious, but there's this beautiful sense of, this beautiful sense that something was being left behind me that was yummy, and that if anybody crossed that path, they were going to be like, what is this intoxicating scent, you know? And in fact, I mean, when I think about like what we leave behind, it feels more to me like something that would be like a scent, or something that would be very subtle, as opposed to, you know, what's right here. So that walk of just this kind of circuitous, open, streaming joy. Walk number 1. Walk number 2, I did a lot of educational outreach when I was in my 20s and early 30s. And I worked in libraries, I worked in auditoriums, I worked in, you know, whatever space. And I would sometimes be teaching, doing a piece for 5 11-year-olds, and sometimes doing a piece for, you know, 500 8th graders or so. And I always remember feeling like I liked what I was doing, it was good work, but I was like, I'm being trained for something else. The content is going to be different down the road. I like this content, I'm glad that I'm sharing what I'm sharing, but the content is going to be different. And I remember particularly, I was in Ohio, and I remember there was a huge stage, and they had set up a stool, and there was one stark spotlight, and there was going to be 2,000 8th graders. And I went out onto stage beforehand, and I was like, I can't see a thing. And I just had this huge, overwhelming kind of panic about, you know, and I've been doing this for a fair amount of time, but for whatever reason, this moment was like, oh God, you know. And then I was sitting backstage waiting to go on, and they had to talk to me through a green room, and I was late to get on stage. But the minute that I was called, I remember this walk to the center of the stage and feeling like, am I going to survive this? But also just walking through the fear. And I remember that this feeling of, like, again, what was left behind was this kind of, this incredible determination to stand in the light and own it for something in the future. Do you know, like, if I can do this, then I get to earn what I really want to be communicating. So this, you know, and as I'm telling you these walks, I'm sure you have some walks of your own that you're in your life, these walks where something was left behind. Maybe something was shed. Do you know, like that walk, something was shed because I needed to get through. Third walk, I am in labor 35 hours. And there's one moment halfway through where they say, get out of the rocking chair. I was at a birth center, and go walk down the stairs to out onto the block and walk back again. And I was like, you gotta be kidding me. I cannot move. You know, I mean, it was like one of those where you just want to just sit and sit and sit. But I got up, and I remember that every step of that walk, I mean, I had to go down a bunch of stairs, and every step of that walk was moving towards something, and again, releasing something, letting something go. It was a walk of intention. It was a walk of focus. Like, and I've started to think in these last days, thinking about this talk, it's like, what is the color? Do you know, what is the color we're leaving behind? What is the texture? What is the, if it was a geometric pattern, what would we be leaving behind us on these walks? You know, I mean, really, look, we have an energy body. It has color. We just don't see it. Some of us don't see it yet, you know? So what is, I mean, what if we could see, like the Matrix, you know, if you actually could see as you're walking through, like what you're leaving behind, I think it would be stunning. And so, you know, those 3 walks for me, and I'm sure that, you know, we could all come up with some really powerful ones, have a forward momentum and this ripple that would be fascinating to turn around and go, oh, you know. And we also know all the walks where we've burned something up in our path and left destruction behind us, right? Left misery and wreckage and carnage, and, you know, there's that wake too. So the definition, I just sort of love, the definition of awake is the region of recirculating flow immediately behind a moving or stationary solid body caused by the flow of surrounding fluid around the body. So this recirculating flow that is already the fluid around your body, and then how do you what happens when this ripples out? Does this little boat get capsized? Does this, you know, does somebody get a gentle, rocking, you know, beautiful experience? What happens as your vessel cuts through? So I've chosen some poems tonight that that sort of hopefully capture some of this. And there's another dimension to awake, which is awake, which is, what are you leaving in your awake? What are you leaving behind you because you're conscious? And what a difference it makes when we are conscious, when we are awake. Even if we've just burned the forest down, there's a part of us that goes, okay, I have to go back and fix that. I have to go back and clean that up. I mean, there are people that move through the world that are not awake, and we've every day here, right? Every day in LA, we come across what's happening where people are completely only frontally alive, and what's left behind is ugly. But the minute we start to wake up, it's this 360 thing that Andrew was talking about. We're not just 2 dimensions. The minute we start to wake up, we realize that we have to turn around and breathe love back into that situation. So this first poem is a poem that I wrote for my dear friend Elizabeth. And you know, sometimes when you are thinking about giving a talk, when you're having a conversation, and you're like, oh, this is a new idea. I have this new idea that I want to talk about, and then you go back and you realize that 10 years ago you're like, that was a new idea 10 years ago, and I was writing about that. But I mean, it's interesting because this poem actually has the word wake in it, and clearly I was already feeling into that image, you know. So it's called For Elizabeth Who Walks in Brooklyn. For Elizabeth who walks in Brooklyn. Not just Brooklyn, but Denver and Dallas, Concord and Aspen, Athens. She walks where she finds herself. Every day she walks with a good pace, on strong legs, a hearty spirit. Some days she leaves behind a small sadness or a full-out bloody battle. Most days she walks with joy, her good cheer shining outward, waking all that cross her path. She changes her life daily as she walks, grace and ferocity alive in every step. She is my walking friend, marching forward, in spite of everything, in spite of anything, she walks. Her walk says there is power in each step that later we call our journey. Her steps call out beauty and strength, beauty and strength, beauty and strength. Oh, my walking friend, there is goodness in your wake. So Elizabeth, you know, she's a perfect example because she will go out on a walk when she is just furious or raging, you know, and like something horrible has happened. And a lot of times she'll call me and be like, ah, you know, but after she hangs up the phone, I also have this image that she is walking her way through that. And she knows that she has to walk in order to let it process. And I would say to you that when you're consciously doing something like that, what you shed is compost for those that follow you. Do you know? Like that in fact, if you are consciously going, I have to do this because it's good for me and because I know it's going to change, then all that just ripples off and goes into the dirt, and then somebody who steps there next is not going to be but is going to actually be encouraged or like something's been going on here. Someone is changing her life as she walks, you know? So, and I think you can, I mean, have you ever walked behind someone and you could just, you didn't have to see their face, but you could feel what was rippling off, you know? It's, I tell you what, it's just a good practice, no matter what, to bring your attention as you're taking a walk to what, to what is being left behind. So Rumi says, you know, he says, wherever you are, be the soul of that place. And then Joseph Campbell has this beautiful, sanctify the place you are in. So that's another way of thinking, like, wherever you are for any period of time, if you become the soul of that place, if you bring peace, if you bring humility, if you bring kindness to that place, then once again, when you leave it, that place is imbued. Like when we leave tonight from all this beauty, from this particular community gathering, there's going to be something left in the space that is, you know, beautiful and exquisite, and somebody else could enter and go, you know. And I think that each individual walking by, if we cross the path and go, oh, what was that? I mean, like, I often talk about the priestesses in India thousands of years ago that when they walked, people would follow after them and scoop up the sand where they walked because it was such a blessing, because they were so affected by it, you know, that they would say, this is sacred, you know. So because of their practice and their work. And I also just want to say, it's not like, okay, we all have to be the Dalai Lama, or we all have to be Pollyanna, or we can't be angry. It's, you can have a walk that comes out of incredible intention. You can have a walk that is just full of will, that's leaving a clear, gorgeous wake. You know, it doesn't have to be like, I'm so peaceful, right? I mean, there's much else. Now, just recently, I had a really beautiful example of what's left behind. My dad, I was at a conference, and which my dad runs, and it's been for 30 years, so I've grown up at this conference. And it was a Sunday morning, and there was a final ceremony, and my dad, I was like watching him across the room, and he was just like shrinking. He was very ill. He got very ill, and he ended up in the hospital just like several hours later. He ended up in the hospital with pneumonia. And I have not spent much time in hospitals, which is I'm grateful for, but I spent 5 days in the hospital with him. And it was such an amazing experience on so many levels. First of all, I have to say that when I had my son Dylan, the first nurse that walked in, introduced herself and said, "Hello, my name is Blessing." And I was like, this is so gorgeous. I was like, thank you for having that name. And then the first nurse that walked in when my dad was sick was like, "My name is Precious." And I was just like, this is crazy. But this particular hospital was a really wonderful hospital. We lucked out. It was 3 blocks away from the place where we had the conference. And I have to say, I was so touched. People came in every 2 hours. We must have encountered 40 different hospital staff and doctors. And I was so touched about how they entered and what they left behind as they left, because they changed the space every time. Like my dad and I would be in there and he would be coughing and coughing, and I was like, oh my God, is this the end? I mean, and they would come in with either laughter or, patting him on the back or deep concern. I mean, there was something that was very, very tender. And I know we don't all, this was a unique experience. I'm sure we've all had miserable experiences in hospitals, but for whatever reason, this was a particularly blessed time. And so I was so touched about how one little exchange can radically transform a room. And a hospital room is so bleak, but you could actually feel the energetic shift. And then it just so happened that my whole family had gathered because my brother was having a big birthday, and my mother was there. My parents are divorced, but my mother was there, and my older brother was there, and my younger brother was there. And so when he went into the hospital, we all happened to be there. And we all had these moments with him early on where it was really tender and delicate. And I watched each of these moments because I was in the hospital room the whole time. And again, these heightened moments of our lives where you feel like it could just ripple through the rest of your life. Seeing my older brother touch my father's forehead, and in the way that he touched it, and in his shy awkwardness, but he needed to do that, and the tenderness will just, that gesture will just have ripples for me for the rest of my life. So I wrote a poem. One of my dear friends texted me when she knew I was in the thick of it, and she just wrote, "Write a poem." I was like, okay. So, at odd hours, I wrote this poem, and it's called "This Fragile Tower." My father sleeps curled on his side, his breathing labored. It is day 3 in this sterile room of fitful sleep and watchful waiting. We will not lose him this time, but our hearts sustain an unalterable crack, one that lets the light in, says Leonard Cohen. What is precious will fall away too soon. All we hold beloved is ours now to love. My towering brothers, suddenly tender, stay close. A hand on my father's forehead. This is the hand that healed a hummingbird, my older brother says. My younger brother, deep in thought, searching, impossible to give words to the sea inside. Divorced 15 years shy of their 50th anniversary, my mother tells him a story. Remember that fall in Ann Arbor? You left me a note at the apartment. Meet me in the Arb. I found you in a tree. You said you were talking to God. I should have known better then. We all laugh. Today, this sterile room in this fragile tower hosts a homecoming, an unexpected reunion filled with hope and secret promises, given the chance to love better, to love more. Another thing that I like to think about is, are people breathing more deeply because you've walked through the room? Are people suddenly going, oh, Are they breathing for the first time of the day? Are they noticeably softened or noticeably inspired? I mean, you know, you can walk through the room. I mean, I mostly walk through the room like this. I mean, but we try to bring, I mostly walk through the room like biting my nails in with my shoulders around my ears. But I also try to bring as much consciousness as I can when I can. And when I make the shift about how I touch someone, how I look at someone, you know, there's a beautiful quote that's one of my favorite that is from a book called Agni Yoga that says, "The particles of a glance do not disappear." So, you know, and again, what's the energy of that glance? So the particles of a glance, a touch, and how that changes. I mean, also, come on, wings. I don't know, there's something about the back body and angels and wings and flight that is so evocative when we think about these things. So this next poem is called The Quivering. Such a great word. And again, it's so funny because I was like, the quivering, I love this word. And I fell in love with the word a couple of months ago. And then I went back and I found a poem that I'd written 6 years before. And I was like, the quivering is in this way. The word quivering is there. So these things that sneak up on us and become themes in our lives and, you know. But this, to me, is a poem about this idea of, if we are charting our own path of light, if we are intentionally walking, then all the fear, pain that gets sloughed off is what creates the path for others to follow. You know, is inspiration, and we create a light for others to follow. And this idea of the quivering is a willingness to be at the threshold and to get so sick of yourself that you're ready for the new, and you have to stay in the shaking. You stay in the shaking of transformation until it's done. And maybe that's all I'll say. Sometimes it's better not to say a lot. Just read the poem. Okay. Those are the quivering. If we but make friends with the quivering, the subtle and not so subtle shaking of the body and all its parts, letting go of what we've held on to long enough. If we but soften our grasp on who we have always been, to make room for what can be, knowing not what may appear, knowing only the quivering. And I ask, is not some part of us always dying? And I ask, are we not every day, in some small way, reborn? Then just as the wild animal shakes off the fear of attack, we too can shake off the fears that want to eat us whole. We can walk barefoot in the woods with a quiver of arrows, cautious of what still wants to ensnare us, but alive with the light emanating from our newly trodden path. Are we not path makers? So we are. Are we not pathfinders? So we are. Do arrows not quiver before they are loosed into the world? Then so must we. Finally, we are archer and arrow at once, sprung into the wind, carried swiftly, silently, precisely to our very heart, pierced and present. It's a very Sagittarian poem for those of you that know astrology. Yeah. It makes me also think of that in did any of you, The Last of the Mohicans, do you remember that from years ago? Daniel Day-Lewis, how he's going through the forest and he's silent and he's running barefoot and he's leaving this incredible trail of incredible dexterity and agility and silence and, you know, making it through. And I mean, that's an interesting wake too, right? This path of like, shoo, and he's invisible, he's gone, and he's learned that. Yeah. So one thing that I want to say is that, like, a lot, unexpected things can change a space, right? So it's not, again, it's not just this purity, it's not just this being the good person. It's like courage can change a space, laughter can change a space, tears like shed wholly, and like a purification, just letting it pour can change your wake, because you're lightening up, you're letting go, you're full-bodied feeling and moving through what needs to be felt and moved through, right? So gratitude can change your wake. Wonder can change your wake. Self-forgetfulness can change your wake. Harmlessness, right speech can change your wake. But this is a poem, and Mary's going to come up and help me with this one. This is a poem that is about facing fear and how it changes the wake of hopefully not only me, but everyone that was in the plane with me. It's called Flying in the Face of Fear. I'm traveling to Denver, Colorado, tucked into seat 28E, the middle seat, ignoring the inevitable takeoff. These moments pre-flight are always the same. My breath quickens. I try not to cry as I bid goodbye to all I hold dear. Struggling to appear calm, I wildly summon faith. Oh, this complete surrender when a body must sigh away imagined horror to make room for something larger, when all is risked to welcome the nascent, tender, yet to be. Only moments to flight, and the pilot says, "There are storms ahead." I give myself a little pep talk. I'm insisting on trust, but my body wants no part of this uncertainty. Then quite suddenly, something snaps. Some inner tension long held breaks, and from some hidden reserve of courage in the thick of my body, sick of fear, I hear myself start to sing like Aretha or Adele in a riveting, time-stopping voice that there are always storms ahead, my love, so walk on. Well, we're speeding down the runway, and I'm belting it out. Now aloft, I'm singing to every traveler on the plane, to my daughter, my little boy blue son, my husband lover. I'm singing large and loud, setting myself free. I'm a goddamn R&B singer flying in the face of fear, and you better believe I'm walking on. Anybody else fear flight? I have all these talismans that I mean, like, I really do. I'm crazy. I like have something that I have to hold on to, and if I've forgotten it, then I'm like, oh my God, I forgot my pink quartz heart, you know. And I've started to do things where, like, years. I mean, I've been working on this forever, right? But years ago, I'd be like, okay, now, just make your body really calm. Okay, now, and close your eyes and just imagine that you're dancing really wildly, you know. And it's just nothing works. But meanwhile, Andrew and Kate, are like, woo, you know, like whatever. We just dropped 1,000 feet, no problem, you know, which always kills me. It's unfair. And Dylan, my 6-year-old, unfortunately has held on to my. What's in the car? Oh no, I'll walk you out. Yeah. Anyway, okay. So now I'm going to ask Gabe to come out. And I want to share, this is a prose piece. And this is for all of us. This whole room is full of creators. This whole room is full of, you know, I'm looking out and seeing artists and people that, she's like, no, it's to future artists. But I mean, artists of your life, right? And, and this piece is like, I guess one of the things that I really came to after considering this whole idea of leaving beauty in our wake is that we leave beauty in our wake when we commit ourselves to something that just feels delicious and feels like a true calling and feels like something that is ours to create, that is ours to give, that is ours to make a difference in the world. It's our beauty to create. So, so this is a piece, it's interesting Elizabeth is featured tonight because this is a piece about, oh gosh, probably 15 years ago now, how Elizabeth and I came to, oh the lightning, the thunder. Yeah, it's good. Okay. How we came to create a piece that we really had an amazing time creating. And yes, so let's do it. Okay. We're gonna improvise here. We're driving across country. Elizabeth and I are talking for hours about our work, our loves, our unfolding lives. She is hungry for quality work. She's an actress and has been understudying far too much. She wants to bite into something real. She wants substance. Why don't we just write you something, I say. Why don't we create a one-person show for you? I'll direct, you act, you'll have something great to do. It takes some convincing. She's not sure about one-person shows. What would it be about anyway? We don't want to do anything autobiographical. We'll figure it out, I say, and we drive on. But something in the air has changed. We're stopped by a huge snowstorm and forced off the highway for a number of hours. We drink hot chocolate in the diner, we brew some more. When we get to Denver, we'll spend some time in the Tattered Cover bookstore. We'll just roam around and let ourselves be drawn to something, someone, I say. Let's just see what happens. We do that. We bring her boyfriend, Benjamin. There are 3 huge floors in the Tattered Cover, and we all split up, agreeing to meet in an hour. I drift from history to biography. I look at Opal, the Journal of an Understanding Heart. A novel written in first person, but decide that Elizabeth has way too much Scorpio for that. I sit in the aisle of life stories, remarkable women, women who have done something in the world, but nothing calls out. At one point, I see Elizabeth has a pile of books, but looks dejected. Benjamin is nowhere to be seen. I have just 5 minutes left and nothing in my hands. I wander over to the arts section and see a book I recognize from my childhood. It's specifically a book that my mom had by her bed for a period of time. I remember the picture on the front. This copy is wrapped in plastic. I can't thumb through. It's Paula Modersohn-Becker's journal. She was a painter at the turn of the century in Germany. I want to open it. I'm curious if her writing is any good. I follow the rules and don't, but I walk to our meeting spot with the book in my hand. Something feels zingy. Elizabeth still looks frustrated. Benjamin arrives with a piece of paper. Elizabeth goes through her books, and there are few possibilities, but nothing sings. I tell them about the journal. I just have a feeling that this is going to be good. Benjamin hands me a piece of paper. He's been online downstairs. He says he's found just one interesting possibility. The paper has a name written on it, Paula Modersohn-Becker. We buy the book in a kind of awed silence. We run across the street to a coffee shop, rip open the plastic, and Elizabeth opens the book to a random page and reads. The words are about beauty and yearning, hunger and commitment. And Elizabeth's voice sings as she reads them. We look at one another. We have our woman. We make a plan. We make a crazy plan. A few days later, broke girls that we were, we rent a theater in downtown Boulder for 6 months from that time. We secured dates without a stitch of a script. Next, we arranged for Elizabeth to come to Seattle for 3 weeks, during which we'll write the play. I know we will need to be out of the house. I know we will need space to show up in. I find an old, unused pottery studio that we can rent for virtually nothing. In the weeks between finding the book and her arrival, we both read the journal several times. We highlight and scribble. We choose beloved sections. We photocopy. We have no idea how this will go down. The studio is completely empty except for a rickety chair. We sit on the floor most of the time. On our first day, we just sort of stand and stare at each other and have no idea how to begin. We decide to lay out the sections we love just in a huge swath on the floor. Where does her journey begin? What's the story we want to tell? She's a young woman painter from Germany in her 20s at the turn of the century. She hangs out with a very cool group of artists every summer in the colony called Worpswede. Rainer Maria Rilke is one of them. She studies in Paris and loves it there. There she's most alive. In Germany, she falls in love with an older landscape painter, Otto Modersohn, and he wants to marry her. She's torn. She loves her solo time in Paris. She's experimenting with expressionism. She paints women and children. She does many vivid, authentic self-portraits. She paints herself naked. She has a look in her eyes. She finally marries Otto, though there's much reason to believe she loved Rilke a great deal. Her journal carries all her worries, her passions, her hopes, her awakenings through art. Ultimately, Otto wants a child, and she, too, in some part, wants to be a mother. She journeys back and forth from Germany to Paris. She's restless. She's uncertain. She does not know where to land. She gets pregnant and continues to paint through her pregnancy. She paints herself pregnant. She knows this means she will have to be in Germany. She's torn. She has her baby and writes a journal entry, one of the last, that she has never been so happy in her life. This birth is fruition for her. This birth is synthesis. Rilke believes she has given up. 18 days after the birth of her daughter, she stands up to get out of bed and falls to the ground. She dies immediately of an embolism. We know we have to capture the struggles of the woman artist. We know there is no black and white. We dive in. The Pottery Studio is a good 3-mile walk from my apartment on Capitol Hill in Seattle. We walk there and back every day. Occasionally, if we are exhausted, we call my fiance Andrew and he picks us up at the end of the day and we'll stop and pick up food before heading home. We stand over the papers scattered on the floor. We arrange and rearrange. We begin to write an actual script. I fall into actually typing our thoughts into the computer. Elizabeth stands over my shoulder and reads. Sometimes we don't talk. I just type, she reads, and then we edit. Sometimes she reads the passages out loud and we feel into what needs to be said next. The bulk of the play are Paula's words, but they need transitions, bridges. We want her art in the piece as well. We study everything she created and choose slides. We find a book written by a professor in Michigan all about a presumed affair between Rilke and Modersohn. We devour it and decide to contact him. He's thrilled. Someone out there is reading his book. He invites us to do the show in Michigan when it is complete. We have a reading scheduled, and as the date approaches, we're tense. I'm writing in silence more and saying less. She's angry that I don't share the ideas first, that I just start to write without consultation. It's a fair argument, but I don't know how to work another way. Once I ask her not to read over my shoulder because I'm on a roll and I just need a minute, and she explodes. She feels left out of the process. I need to talk to her. She storms out. We're in the thick of it. The reading is simply staged and is in a tiny black box theater. There are only 9 or 10 people there, but we are excited. The script works. There's way more to do, but it works. A friend of ours reads some of Rilke's voiceovers, and Elizabeth mainly sits on and around the desk. There isn't room to do much else. There's a flower on the desk. It's stark and simple, and Elizabeth is radiant. We call in favors. People build the set for nothing. Our friend Leela puts together the slides and lends us all her equipment for a huge rear projection screen. Other friends record voiceovers. We beg, borrow, and steal her costume. A wig is donated through the Denver Center. A friend helps compose a bit of music. We do some publicity interviews. We can't believe we are creating this in a few months. We are proud of the work we're doing. We have very little time to rehearse in Boulder. Elizabeth is starting to feel the intensity of 80 minutes on the stage alone. She wants more encouragement. I'm pushing her. There are several more creative explosions before we arrive at opening night. But here's what it's all about. We invite our mothers to opening night. We dedicate the play to them. We know how they struggled to offer their art amidst the expectations of the roles of mother and wife. We know what they sacrificed. They sit fifth row center together. Looking down at them from the lighting booth, I cry. The play is called Bearing Fruit, spelled with just an A, both revealing the sweetness of self and bringing it to full fruition. And that's what we're doing, my dear friend and I. The lights come up, and there Elizabeth stands, radiant, full, offering everything, some divine mixture of synchronicity, bravado, yearning, and love brought us to this moment. And it's everything.
You're welcome.
That was an awesome time of my life. You know, as I was reading it, this professor in Michigan, he was so sweet. He'd written this book about the affair, and I don't know if anybody had read it besides us. But we called him, and he was very awkward and very sweet, and we went and talked to him in his house, and he had on this new pair of jeans. You could tell because there was the strip that had like 32, 32, 32, 32. The whole time we were talking to him, and I was like, I don't know whether to just rip it off because he's gonna find it at the end of the night. You know, he was like, but he was lovely, and he created this whole venue for us to offer the play. But I mean, you all have a story, you know, like that at a moment in your life where you were just like, this has to be created. And I want us to all feel into the juiciness of what we are emitting, what we are offering just by committing like that. And not what we're offering here, but what we're subtly offering. We're subtly offering such inspiration. We're subtly offering, you can do this. We're subtly offering like the little seed whisper of what's to come. And this is a piece, I mean, I just feel like we can all do this for one another. And the final piece of the evening is a piece called Morning Walk. And it was a moment in my life where I really recognized how profoundly, in an instant, someone was changing my life. And we'll always remember that moment. And was a moment that it could have gone by like that, and it might not have landed the same way as it landed for another, for another person. But for me, it was a moment where I said, this woman is changing my life right here, right now. I mean, it was just this tangible thing. So I'm going to read this, and it's an opportunity, an inspiration for us all to know how much we affect each other so subtly, so quickly, so immediately. You know, you can just be inspired, fall in love, know that you're being pushed in the best way into the next part of your life just from an encounter, yeah? So, Morning Walk. I was in Ojai, and I was on one of my mini retreats that I take to just go walk and write poetry, and I was feeling particularly grumpy that morning because I hadn't written anything. Frost kisses the oranges. Curious with cold, the birds chatter amongst themselves. I walk briskly down a stretch of road looking for patches of sun, my hands plunged in pockets, my brow crinkled with morning plans. She rides towards me on a rickety blue bike, weaving back and forth to make the incline easier. Her hair is silver and flowing. She's flushed like a child who has come to report her latest adventure. Her face like a saint, open, fresh, smooth. Even with the effort of the climb, delight ripples in her wake. When we meet, her eyes shine. She laughs, "Wait till you see the snow." She might have said, "Wait till you see beauty everywhere. Wait till you know the secret of all things. Wait till you know you are love." But she says what she does and rides by, her story told, her message delivered. I look to the capped peak in the distance. I see the beauty of a mountain rarely covered in winter, while my body is melting into spring. Tears stream down my face, a hardness around my heart dissolves. I fling open my arms and gather her goodness to my chest as my body breaks into blossom. "Wait till you see the snow," I whisper. Wait till you see it. Her unabashed love careening, ricocheting through my now vast heart. And we can do this for one another. And we don't know when we're doing it for one another sometimes, right? Like, that's the juicy part. We don't know. Like a coffee shop encounter, we don't know. And so, I mean, at the end of a day, even just reviewing some of, what happened and to bring consciousness to what might have occurred. I mean, it's so beautiful what we can do for one another. And I would say it's so beautiful what we can do for one another in the wake of a group. I did a Radiant Life retreat in February, which is, I get groups of women together, and there's something about the ripple of that particular one that it just continues, and the women keep at the perfect moment, keep just sending an email, sending a picture, sending a quote, and you can feel that the energy of the group just still is somehow, we're still bathing in it. You can bathe in Awake. You can bathe in Awake, and you can bathe in Awake. Yeah? Thank you, friends. That's all I have to say to you tonight. Mwah. Thank you, guys. Yes, and have some water, a glass of wine, or whatever if you like before you go. And thank you for being here. And the next one is in August 6th. And there's some cards with workshops and talks on them. Thank you.